Welcome all of you to the Values for Life series, episode 74 on sweetness. And as always, before we begin, let's take a moment in silence and invoke the presence of the Supreme Being. So welcome all of you to the episode 74 on sweetness. We are starting dot on time today. And we have our two sweet speakers, Sister Dipti and Brother Ashish. So welcome both of you. And before I give it to you all, thank you so much for joining. I would just like to speak a few words about both of them. Both of them have been with us previously on the workshops and even the series as well before. So let's start with Sister Dipti first. So she has been a student and a teacher for the Brahma Kumaris, at the Brahma Kumaris rather, for the past 36 to 40 years. And she's the coordinator at the Observatory Center for the Brahma Kumaris in Johannesburg. She has also served as being the national coordinator for the Living Values, which was an educational program running for the Southern Africa. And she's also a youth coordinator. And many of us know her that she's working as a part of the core team for the IYF, the International Youth Forum programs. And her experience in education is she's an edu wellness coach and providing this service for almost last 30 years in the field of education. And currently, as we speak, she's joining us from South Africa. So welcome, sister. And another speaker, he's not sent me a lot in his bio data. You know it very well, Brother Ashish. He's just sent me a few lines. So I will be reading those few lines. He's a practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation, and Brother Ashish has realized that the teachings of the BKs have made him realize the transformative power of meditation and good wishes. And he says that with compassion and heartfulness, he's continuing to learn and apply it in the practical teachings across all the aspects of his life. And he works as a sales leader for an IT company responsible for business growth and developing enterprise client relationships. So there you are, both our speakers are in front of you. And before we begin, I would like to recite a few lines for both of you, the sweet Raj Yogi souls we have. And the poem is on sweetness and also highlighting both of you. So Sister Dipti and Brother Ashish are both living examples of sweetness. That's because the Almighty is constantly in their awareness. Through their actions, they demonstrate how to develop oneness. And again, that's because they are always situated in soul consciousness. Both of us teach how to become embodiments of greatness and develop the subtle skills and qualities of fineness. You know, life is otherwise so complicated with people full of bitterness. And that's because everyone is under the dark spell of body consciousness. And now being in the company of Supreme makes us realize our completeness and shows us a new ray of hope in this age of darkness. And finally, we now look at each other and rejoice at our brightness, forgetting all our burdens and experiencing the bliss of lightness. So with this, I would request Sister Claudia to please welcome both of them. Over to you, Sister Claudia.
Good morning, good afternoon for some of you, good evening for all of them. So It's a very good pleasure for me and honor to welcome both of you. Sister Deepti has been with us, and Brother Amish is his first time, but it's a very good pleasure to have both of you and talk about a very specific virtues, which is sweetness, because nowadays there is much sweetness that's artificial sweetness in the souls and in the food. So it's good to know what is the real sweetness is. So I would like to welcome you with the color of the Canada, which is red and white. So for both of you, so just receive this from Canada and then welcome to our program.
Thank you. So thank you, Sister Claudia. And before we give it to the speakers, a few housekeeping instructions. So there are quite a few languages today, almost 7. And you can please click on the interpretation icon and select the language in which you want to hear. It's a very difficult value, I must say, to speak on. I was speaking to them before we started. And if you have any questions, as Sister Claudia pointed out, on something called artificial sweetness in the world, we know artificial sweeteners, but there is artificial sweetness in the world as well. So please send your questions to me directly. The first hour would be a talk by both of them as a conversation, followed by 15 minutes question answers, and then announcements and meditations. So thank you so much to all the participants for joining, and the stage is all yours. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Manoj Bhai.
Thank you, Manoj Bhai, and to the rest of the team as well. It's actually a real honor to be here, and I saw it as a wonderful opportunity to have a really lovely catch up with Deepti Ben, who I've known for many, many years. So yesterday we spent 90% of the call just catching up and 10% of the call talking about sweetness. But it felt like such a sweet conversation we were having. And it felt like, even though it's been a few years since we connected, there was it almost felt like time hadn't passed, and I feel that that's very connected to our topic today, in how do we emerge sweetness in our relationships in a genuine and authentic way. And so I wanted to frame that as a starting point, because the thought that came to us was, maybe I can start the flow of the conversation today by just asking Sister Deepti just to share on some aspects of sweetness before we break into a conversation in a more natural way. And as you said, Manoj Bhai, this word, this virtue quality, is actually not necessarily something we hear until we've gone through the Raj Yoga course and we spend a lot more time really going into the depth of what it really means to be sweet. But I recognize that even before I'd taken knowledge, there was always this concept of labeling individuals as sweet souls, so there would be a feeling of likability or warmth towards individuals that you would tend to call sweet in some way. But equally, as you said, this use of artificial sweeteners, there was also this recognition when somebody is being sickly sweet. And I think in today's conversation, we wanted it to really be very grounded, very real, very authentic, so that we can unpack this topic in a way that reveals what the underlying qualities of this word sweetness really means. And I have to say, for both of us, we were on the same page immediately when it came to being connected to the teachings of Daddy Janki. We've both had, Daddy Janki's probably been our spiritual mother in big ways. And so a lot of her classes have formed inspiration for us on this topic, and her churnings have been so deep on this topic. So I actually just wanted to start maybe by asking Deepti Ben this question: what is the definition of sweetness in terms of, we understand sweetness as perhaps how we convey our words, but what is it really in your words, so that we can just begin to unpack this topic? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ashish. Yes, as Brother Ashish was saying, sometimes we can go into a virtue at a very conscious level and say, this is what sweetness is, and these are the components of sweetness. But yesterday was one of the real experiences for me of what sweetness is, where sweetness is an expression of something much deeper, something much more purer, something much more grounded in truth, a feeling of a deep, deep sense of belonging to something that is eternal and original. And I think yesterday when you and I were chatting, the fragrance after the conversation was a very sweet fragrance. And I thought about it and I thought, what were the ingredients that left that residue with me as I put the phone down? And one is that there was pure love. Secondly, there was a connection, a genuine connection, a recognition of each other with a common purpose that we've had. The third was the level of authenticness. I think both of us in our journeys together have stayed quite authentic in the way we operate, and yet the ability to blend that authenticness to express a common thread, which is such a beautiful flow. And a transparency, there was a secret joke that I had and I mentioned it to him and we both laughed about it. But it was like the honesty of the journey. And I think many of these components is what gives the expression of sweetness. Sometimes people say, I have to be sweet, but you can't be sweet. Sweetness is the fragrance, sweetness is the taste, sweetness is the flavor, sweetness is the outcome of something much, much more that is exchangeable at a very beautiful spiritual divine level. And I think this is for me this journey, and it's just started very nicely as we were speaking yesterday afternoon. Yeah,
interesting. And I think I resonate with that because I think as human beings we really crave intimacy. That's one of the qualities that emerges for me where we're really able to meet each other at a level that is deeper than the superficial. And that level of intimacy, it really allows hearts to meet, hearts and minds together. And I feel that when that connection naturally takes place, actually all of the qualities that you had expressed become present very naturally, because that level of intimacy, that level of trust, that level of openness, that level of transparency and honesty just exists in a very real way. And I love this word intimacy because it actually means into me see. And it's a beautiful word because it allows myself to be revealed and it allows the other person to be revealed as they are. And I feel that when our relationships can really transcend to that genuine level, then there will be an absence of nonviolence, right? And there will be a complete presence of a caring tone, being very thoughtful with the words we use, being very mature with how we express them, but equally, kind of bringing a real genuineness in that relationship, right? I don't know what your thoughts are on this aspect of intimacy in relationships, in human relationships. Maybe you could.
Yes, I think It's a very interesting choice of word you've used there, Ashish, because I think today people can be together, but not connected. There are a lot of people that are together, but they lack connection.
Mm.
And when I can connect, they say when something is sweet, it can blend and bring things together. It's like, when that sweetness is heated in the way, it becomes a beautiful syrup and it blends and it gels together. And I think that when a lot of people today spend time together, and there's a lot of attention that people say today, we must be together, people must be, but connection is something totally different.
Mm.
And I think that when there's a connection, things begin to happen. And there's a flow. I was just thinking this morning at Amrit Vela, I said in my morning meditation, I said to God that, today I have to speak about sweetness. And it was just such a sweet moment because I got the feeling that you are connected to me, aren't you? And isn't this moment bringing a sweet connection? And that's why the word connection seems such real energy for me at this moment, because this is the kind of connection. And I think even with people today, this kind of connection is what is lacking. People can be living with each other, people can be together, but there's, when people in the world says people don't gel, they can be together, but there's no gelling taking place. What's that gelling? They use that word, they don't gel together.
Yeah.
It's like the connection is not there for something to come out of it, which is deeper. And I think this is what we have to give time and space for. Because ultimately, in our relationships, connection is important. And I'm sure we'll unpack that connection more as we talk today, because it's not about putting band-aids on things to make it hold together. It's something much more deeper than that. Yeah.
Definitely. And I, when we're talking about this quality of sweetness, it has greater significance in connection, in relationships. And that's where you can really begin to see the effort somebody's made in how they convey themselves and able to hold their sense of self-respect in any relationship, whether it's between two individuals that can get on really easily, or to, them facing an individual that they perhaps may not be able to get on with, to be able to have the constancy of their own self-respect and being able to articulate, being able to communicate in a very genuine and authentic way without violating, the rights of others, without bringing any form of force in or use of inappropriate language into conversations. And actually, one of the thoughts that I was having was just reflecting on my own journey and recognizing where I fall out of sweetness. And this is an interesting thing to take up. But before we actually move into that space, I actually just thought this word didn't really carry much strength with me until Daddy Janki really explained the definition behind sweetness. And I'd like to just unpack this in a very methodical way with you, and maybe just, I don't know, for you to just share something practical around each of these phases or how they're connected to each other. And then maybe we can focus more about what blocks our capacity to be sweet, because I think this is something that everyone can relate to in relationships. So Daddy specifically was very good at giving formulas, right? She would take what is shared in the Murlis, in our readings, and break it down in a way that allowed us to practically become it using a formula. And one formula she gave us was how to achieve sweetness. And so she gave us a very simple formula, and it started with purity, truth, patience, humility, and then patience and humility create maturity. And then the outcome of all of that is sweetness. So the process, or as you were saying, the outcome is sweetness if I'm able to be all of these qualities. So how does one lead into each other? Can I just hop in at any point? What's your view on this formula, and how every component of this formula is essential to getting to sweetness?
So that's lovely. I just want to take it up. I'm so sorry, the sun is right over me. We have a sunshine moment and a strange moment. Can you just give me 1 second? I'm really sorry about this. I don't know if that helps. Anyway,
Yeah,
maybe this way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Should I repeat the question, Deepening?
No, I got it.
Okay.
It. Thank you. So I think one of the things that if I just unpack this in my life, in my relationships, for example, I think about purity in relationship is firstly my vision for another soul. And I found that always when there's any relationship that I need to get back to track, because, sometimes there are certain relationships on our journey that we believe in a lot, but over a period of time, sometimes they get challenged, or I may take them for granted in a certain way. And so I find that in order to come back to that real space within my journey, one of the things that is very important is I need to look at my inner attitude and my vision. And I always find for myself that the starting point for me at that level is just to deeply feel that before you are anything, you are a being of energy. And to be able to feel that within your being, you have the best, you have the goodness. Purity is really that space where I don't want to see you in this context of my journey right now. I don't want to see you under the circumstances. I don't want to see you with a backdrop of story, but I want to see you for who you've always been eternally, and to open your heart to that space. And I find it's, we talk about in Brahma Kumaris of being soul conscious, but really to deeply work with the step. And I find you consciously need to look at the other soul and very deeply say that you are a soul. You are this being of energy. And really this purity, I find when I begin to see that in a relationship, it really drops baggage. Because soon as I see you as so-and-so, or my context with which I've worked with you, or the kind of interaction or something happen, there'll always be some residue and some baggage. And then I can't work from that space. No. So like how, if I can work from this original space of really working with the self and saying, beyond your story, beyond the context, I see you as this pure divine being, and really believing in that space. And then in that space, I then allow myself to be honest and truthful. So I'm not just creating certain thoughts and suppressing certain thoughts. Because you can be creating certain thoughts, but at the same time, you're not dealing with the other issue. And I find that when you are able to hold purity in the vision, then whatever else you're going through, with honesty, you find a context for it. And when you find a context for it, you realize the whole person's not bad. There's a part that has happened, and that part is maybe 5% of this wonderful jewel of your life. And so honesty means, for me in this case, the truth is to see the reality. I see my own ego within that moment, and I see, okay, my ego went ouch, and therefore I felt the ouch in you, and I forgot to see you as a pure soul in that way. And so I then started creating all these images about you. So I'm being honest in my own state of being. I see the highest in you. I make the deepest effort in purity to see the highest in you. But in truth, I also see myself. And I also see with honesty, what is the ouch moment of my journey? What is it that's triggering, whether it's my ego, whether it's my insecurity? I stay honest and transparent with myself first, because then I'm opening something there. And that brings me to that level of humility and maturity then, because I realize, hang on, this is not a blame game. This is not a one-way story here. We both have to work on this journey together. The parts of my journey that I need to humble myself because I've seen a certain truth and I see the highest in you, then let me hold that humility to say, okay, I'm willing to now grow in this relationship. I can see how my ego makes me reactive. I can see how I'm behaving in a certain way. And I also see a context. So then I don't become reactive. And that is the maturity that the soul then holds. And then relationships need time. You know, even though I can have this most profound knowledge that you are a soul, and I have the most honest moments of transparency within my being, and I have the maturity to not be reactive. But relationships are not a quick fix in that way. I have to keep working at it. And patience means that I will keep having good wishes. I will keep having faith in myself and faith in you. And I'm not going to look for a quick solution. Each time I see you, I'm going to see you with that highest drishti. And I'm also going to make sure that I'm staying truthful to my own self, that my ego is not coming to play. And I found working like this step by step, when Dadi had shared this formula, it was like such a big gift for me. And I internalized that for my own life and in my own relationships. And I found over a period of time, the fruit of that was sweetness. And what is sweetness? Sweetness is divinity. And sweetness is a naturalness. My relationship with the other person became natural. It was genuine. I was able to draw the highest, but I was also mindful that things within me are not perfect. And those kinds of moments bring the sweetness. I don't know, that's my step-by-step process.
No, I think the connection, I really like the way you split purity and truth, and then you went and talked about, you know, patience and maturity and humility as well. And I just wanted to come back to purity and truth, because in many ways, like you, when this formula was shared, and it was shared over many, many years, and it kept on being drilled into my psyche deeper and deeper. And even though maybe I wasn't able to fully transform my relationships, I was certainly able to observe them in this process. And I found that a revelation, actually, in many ways, because that was the starting point of change. As soon as you become aware of it, then your attitude begins to shift. And I asked, we had the UK Teachers Retreat not so long ago here, and there was one question I had, which was something that's been on my mind for a little while. And I asked Jenti Ben this question, and it really connected with something you were sharing. So, and the question went along the lines of, occasionally, maybe a soul that you've got a karmic account comes in front of you, right? And yes, our vision goes back to that time they did something wrong. And it may just come in a flash. But in that moment, the past becomes present, and your vision towards them is still carrying some aspect of the past. Yeah. And I said, you can control yourself in your interaction, but there isn't wholehearted love. There isn't wholehearted connection. And so I asked her this one question: how do you, after many years, deal with that? How do you actually transform that? And her response was really interesting. And she just paused and she said, we have to have the intention to heal the relationship. And that was the mic drop moment for me, because it keeps going back to purity first, which is to be able to hold a clean space, which is what an intention is, and a clean space and a clean desire to really want to hold a healing space in that relationship, to make right what was wrong. And, you know, it created a feeling of hope inside of me, and it started my journey towards actually releasing whatever I was holding for that soul, and holding a space in my heart where I could start again in that relationship. And even though there have been setbacks occasionally, the intention is to keep moving forward. So the seed is now being sown. And so I wanted to share that, because I feel that that's an aspect of truth in itself, is that when we hold pure intentions towards others, they become a very powerful seed upon which transformation begins to take place. And as soon as none of their past kind of appears as a residue in front of me, then actually the relationship is new again. The relationship doesn't carry any baggage from the past, and I'm able to interact in a very natural way without thinking about what they did wrong or holding something against them, or, you know, kind of, but I'm able to be stable in my self-respect. So I felt that was something I just wanted to share as you were talking about the connection between purity and truth. And the other aspect that I wanted to just mention was this aspect of humility is a wonderful quality, because I've always seen this quality as the fragrance, if you like, of your spiritual efforts. You can't falsify humility, you know, yet you can try, but it will never stick, because once you've made a significant amount of effort on yourself and in your relationships, the outcome is one of being humble, right? And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this topic of, or this quality of humility, because, you know, we talk about humility in leadership, we talk about humility in a number of different ways, like it's something we can just instantly develop as a quality. Could you share a little bit about the effort that's required to really cultivate a state of mind that is genuinely humble?
It's very interesting that we're talking about humility now, because one of the insights I had in this journey is that only when the soul is making effort to be pure, and only when the soul is staying in truth in that way, it awakens its true self-respect. These two ingredients awakens my self-respect. I cannot have genuine self-respect if there's no purity and I am not connected to truth. Because any other form of self-respect is not self-respect. And it's only when I have self-respect can I be humble. It's a very interesting connection, because in the world, they look at humility in a very different way. And sometimes it's a bowing down space. But I think about Dadi Prakash Mani. She just stands out for me so deeply. Recently, we've been thinking about Dadi Prakash Mani, one of our very beautiful administrative heads in this decade, in the century. And just that whole feeling that Dadi's whole energy was so pure. She was just so naturally pure and so truthful that she had a natural self-respect. You know, she commanded situations so powerfully, with a deep, deep sense of self-respect. But that self-respect was so natural that her level of humility was just so incredible. It was, I mean, I was thinking about certain stories about Dadiji and how in certain, Brother Charlie was sharing the other day, that how she knew how to use that self-respect and command at the time of need. And she just knew how to be humble and be with the family as the time of need. It was like an interchange of moments. And I think that if I'm not in my genuine, pure self-respect, I am not going to be genuinely humble. And if I'm not going to be humble, I count in relationships. I manipulate in relationships. I control in relationships. And that when I don't get it my way, I'm going to be bitter because there's something else. So for me, purity and truth has deepened the journey of self-respect. It's really my base. And only when the soul has deep self-respect, it's full, it can bow.
I love this connection between humility and self-respect, because it just shows that as soon as there is natural humility that comes from a sense of self-respect, then instantly you will get regard from others. You won't have to work on gaining their respect, because it will just be present in a very natural and easy way. And one of the lines that kind of stood out for me as you were talking about Dadi Prakash Mani, and I'm just sharing a line from one of Dadi's classes on this. She said, where there is any lack of humility, then truth can't be revealed, because our words will lack power. And I remember Dadi Prakash Mani being an embodiment and just being able to say very little and make such a huge impact. In fact, all of the great yogis, the Dadis, the foundling souls had this capacity to really use their words in a really worthwhile way, in a very simple way, but it carried profound power because it was delivered with such humility and truth, and a sense that with a real clean intention that they wanted everyone to take benefit. There was never any sense that I want to attract anybody to what I'm saying, to my opinion, to, kind of me in any way. It was always about attracting anyone towards the highest truth, right? Towards the divine. And so therefore, whatever expression they had, it was always a message, or being a messenger for the divine in that way. So, and then just take this another step further. And I know you know this from Dadi Janki's time, where she would always talk about her qualities as God-given. They were never hers. They were entrusted upon her. And so she never claimed a right. to her own qualities, and that was a sign of humility in such a big way. And someone asked her a question once, saying, "But Daddy, you have, those qualities are yours because they're inside of you." And she said, "But Baba's given me those qualities at this time. Without God in my life, I would have never received those qualities. And those qualities have carried me through my births. So they took birth in this lifetime." And so it was really interesting that her entire development on this spiritual journey, in the qualities she accumulated, she completely felt that this was, and genuinely felt that this is God-given. And that was a level of humility, which means I'm never directing people towards my own greatness. Actually, it's always the greatness of the divine. Could you share maybe a few things on that? Because I feel this is such a big topic in itself, but it's so connected to sweetness and how we convey ourselves and how our vibrational energy is received by others and inspire others,
It's a very interesting, as you were saying that, Ashish. I remembered the first time when I just came to Baba, to the Brahma Kumaris, and the soul that inspired me on my spiritual journey at that point, the first time I saw a Brahma Kumari was Sister Jayanti. And she had come to South Africa. And it was quite an interesting experience because on the one hand, I could feel that this is a soul of divinity, and this soul had come to deliver truth. But equally enough, I had a very beautiful feeling of her giving me the experience, I'm your sister. It was such a deep combination of somebody who's delivering truth and somebody who's giving you a feeling that you belong. And that created a connection. And that connection opened my spiritual journey. And certainly a very sweet journey of belonging to that source. But it was a very beautiful, it just is an image that came so loud to me now. I can still remember the very first day when I looked at Sister Jayanti and I thought, oh, this is a Brahma Kumari. This is how they look. This is the guy, I didn't know who a Brahma Kumari was. And I saw this beautiful sister in the sari and I thought, okay, this is called a Brahma Kumari. And I knew that she was delivering truth. But equally, I felt, you're my sister. There was a closeness. And it was a sweet meeting, but powerful. And so this whole aspect of, this combination when we talk about sweetness and we talk about connectedness, these ingredients, there's such a balance. There's a balance of humility. There's a balance of truth. There's a balance of power. There's a balance of self-respect and closeness. There's such a beautiful combination, a tapestry of such amazing energies that come together. And the residue and the expression of that is that it leaves a sweet residue and a powerful sweet residue because it's a transforming flavor. Yeah.
I mean, I'm conscious of time because I feel we can continue on this topic. Do we just have a couple of minutes to wrap up and then pass over to Manoj Bhai?
No. You have a lot of time. You have 15 more minutes.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, great. I thought you wanted to say 15 minutes for the end. Okay, good. Actually, I was thinking of just changing track a little bit because I feel we've covered this topic extensively, but on a practical level, how do we begin this journey of developing natural sweetness in our lives, you know, through some of the aspects you'd mentioned, self-respect, purity, things like that on a practical basis. These concepts we've talked about, I'm sure, will have touched and will have resonated with so many. But how do I make this natural? Because I recognize from my own journey that what kills my sweetness is coming into familiarity with others, as an example. And that familiarity means I don't create the space to respect another person's space. And that then, you know, that creates a lack of self-respect in the relationship, or breaches boundaries in relationships. And so in this way, we can block our capacity to be sweet simply by being overly familiar with others. So how do we begin to create respect, boundaries, and strengthen our own self-respect so that we don't come into familiarity with others as often as perhaps we do?
I think for me, one of the things that have helped me a lot is my own internal practices. I think when you keep certain internal practices clear, then you create natural spiritual boundaries around you, which protects you. I find that I try and spend a lot of time in my spiritual journey daily to connect with the eternal self. And it's a deep, deep sense of soul consciousness. And I really, before doing things as a fixer or as a doer, I really feel the importance to be. And I find that just really deepening the experience of the eternal self awakens a deep, deep love in the soul. It awakens deep peace in the soul. It awakens compassion in the soul. It awakens many things that automatically become your light. And then this light is your protection from grasping onto things that will ultimately bring you into spaces like familiarity, or bring you into spaces that take away that sweetness, because it's like you need to make your inner light strong. You know, on our spiritual journey, especially when we work with any of these virtues, I can't make my entry point by saying, do this, don't do this. It doesn't start there. It starts from a space of being. And I think that the more and more I am being, and I'm radiating from that space of being, and I'm activating this awareness, then my love, for example, will be pure love. And that love will be a very secure love. And it will be a very divine love. And when there's a richness of that love, I don't compromise and seek security or closeness at a different level. Because when I'm in a space of familiarity, I'm seeking something. That's why I come familiar, because I'm in need. But when I'm in a space of being at a very deep level, then I stay within that vibration. And that in itself is my protection. I really find that if, for example, I'm experiencing deep, deep love, genuine love, there'll be sweetness in my drishti, in my vision, just naturally. And I'm not going to look at you saying, I want something from you, or I need something from you. My eyes will radiate love. and there will be sweetness. I think about the very beautiful time when in the Brahma Kumaris we used to have this beautiful meetings in Mount Abu. It was a beautiful time of source in this highest connection with the divine. And I remember walking past and having this beautiful drishti of love. And I walked off that stage with my heart full of love and sweetness. I wouldn't have dropped that for anything familiar. Hey, I need this. I want this. Give me this. It was too profound. It was too precious. And I think that at times in our journey, we need to touch that eternal. Sweetness is born out of eternal energy. It's not bought out of physical energy. And sometimes we try to make things sweet, but our entry point is still superficial.
Yeah, it's a good
so
point.
Something else has to be deeper.
Yeah.
And when you're sweet to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very important thing. If I'm only sweet to some people, sometimes you can hear this on phone calls. Some people are talking to one person, you hear one tone. The next second there's another phone call and the tone is totally different, and I know we all probably be a victim of that or a product of that, but real sweetness and genuineness is you're sweet to all. Absolutely. Not just sweet to some.
Absolutely. And I guess, just to close off this aspect of familiarity, it was interesting when you were sharing, because what is clear is when I'm expecting to have my needs met by somebody else, then at that point I've released my self-respect and I'm not staying within my own self.
I crossed the boundary.
Exactly that. I've crossed my boundary. But where I recognize that I do not need to have my needs met by anybody, I stay within my self-respect and I will naturally respect the other. So this is an interesting connection. And I really resonated with what you were sharing just about spending time with the eternal self, because until I'm really able to see the beauty within and to gain the power to see the beauty within, because I think it needs power to really begin to see, the qualities of the soul and to really start to develop a meaningful relationship with myself. We can't begin to do the inner work on ourselves to cleanse. And this is something that I feel has been another topic that Dadi Janki's taken up, which is how to maintain cleanliness of the heart and the significance of maintaining cleanliness of the heart. And I feel that these topics are very connected because, purity at the level of the heart then means I'm not holding anything impure in my feeling space or my thought space towards another individual. And if that space is clean, then actually my attitude towards them will be clean, right? And so I feel that with the power of seeing and being connected to the eternal self, I can begin to observe my inner self with a lot of honesty. And without that power, that step that you were talking about, actually, we can't see ourselves with honesty. Ego always gets in the way, and we move into a space of self-analysis, self-judgment, self-criticism. So we actually don't want to spend time with ourselves. And so I kind of see that the more we can really be connected to our own truth, the more we're able to observe our defects and our weaknesses with kindness, with, a sense that I can transform this with realization, rather than see it and feel low about myself or down about myself, and let that then affect my attitude towards others. And I know that he spent a lot of time just talking about those two subjects, cleanliness of the heart and being connected to yourself, being connected to God, to draw power. Because until those two are cemented, we can't then move into this space of patience and maturity and humility, you know, they're like later stages, right? It's the internal cleanliness that dictates that. So what are your
And
thoughts
really,
on
it's that relationship with God is such an important one. You know, I think about in my own spiritual journey, what has really brought sweetness in my life is that relationship with God, because the perspective and the context that God has brought into my life has allowed many things to be cleaned away and cleared away in that way, because it is that journey that has brought to me what is important. And I think that part of sweetness is an acceptance. Acceptance is a very important energy of sweetness. A soul who's never accepting of truth, of that genuineness, can never just be innocently sweet. Because there'll always be some residue that is there. And I find that this journey with the source, and really this deep connection with that being, has really helped me in a very deep way to clean spaces. And that's a sweetness that it has left. And that's why, like, from the heart, I always feel in my spiritual journey, it's not just something I have to say, but my heart does say sweet Baba, because it's the residue that remains.
It's almost as if there's so many aspects to developing the outcome of what sweetness ultimately is, as we go through this journey of purity, truth, patience, humility, and sweetness, that actually we've got to invest in all of these different aspects. Firstly, it's meditation and connection with the self. Secondly, it's connection with God, you know, making sure that my routine really incorporates that on a regular basis, so I'm able to draw strength and being able to separate myself from ego and see where ego is really hurting me. And then there's wisdom, right? And unless we hear knowledge like this that he shared with us, we haven't got the chance to begin to apply, change, realize. And so wisdom is such an important part of developing this quality and nurturing, you know, our highest potential in some ways. And then I feel writing is another tool that is an essential part of, you know, developing this relationship with the self, where I'm able to use writing as a method of communication between myself and this divine source, God, and be completely open-hearted about the uncleanliness that is present in my heart. And I know I did that practice for 5 years without missing a night, you know, where I would reveal myself fully, completely as I am, knowing that I would not be judged, that I could be free to express what was in my heart in that moment. And all of a sudden, those feelings, anything that I've shared from this space of the heart, were just taken and released and just completely transformed. So this aspect of writing really helped me to develop a greater sense of self-respect, but also it taught me what it meant to deeply surrender, you know, the uncleanliness to God, and to trust that, you know, you may keep taking it back, but eventually it does go. And this is what the journey is, right? The journey is one of us going through this process of purification of our feelings and releasing anything that isn't our core nature. And Daddy once shared a really interesting aspect, because we can realize in our lives that to give sorrow is a bad thing, right? We know that our conscience will immediately bite when we've given somebody sorrow. But taking sorrow is just as bad, if not worse. And yet our conscience never bites us to tell us we've taken sorrow. Maybe because, you know, it's such an unconscious habit where we take sorrow quickly in so many different situations and don't realize that we live with an inner state of violence. And so I feel that this uncleanliness that Dadi's been talking about really refers to owning my experience of life, owning my experience in these situations, and releasing where I'm absorbing pain, where I'm taking sorrow. And one question she asked the group was, what is a sign that I've taken sorrow? And everyone paused. They didn't really know how to respond to it. And she just responded, when your feelings are broken. And of course, the magnitude of what she shared absolutely just hit the room, because, you know, we realized at that point that if peace is your baseline, then anything that moves you away from peace is a state of violence, right? If those core qualities aren't your natural state, then everything else isn't natural. So I just wanted to end on that. And I'd like to maybe just ask you to share something that you would encourage anybody to try, you know, on this journey, wherever they may be, because I'm conscious we have a very mixed audience today. And, you know, some may be very early in their spiritual journey, some may be actually much further ahead. But what is it that you would encourage them to try to deepen their relationship with themselves and to strengthen self-respect as the basis of sweetness?
I think one of the things that one day when I was leaving Madhuban, the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris, and I was at the Tower of Peace at Indraprasth, where Dadi used to stay at that point. And as I took leave from her, she put her hand on my heart and she said, "Kabhi dils shikash nahi banna," never ever get disheartened. And I remember that moment so powerfully as she put her hand on my heart and she said, no matter what happens in your life, never ever get disheartened. And I think the chart of our journey is one of taking care of our feelings.
Yeah.
And the more and more I keep a chart of my feelings, not over-analyzing, not over-critical, but very genuinely. Like at night, I do that. And I find that when I keep a chart of my feelings, I can see what's building up inside, and I can see what's growing inside, both aspects. Because if things are building up inside over a period of time, they're going to leave a bitterness. They're going to leave a residue. And I need to clean that.
I need to clean
and so to check that. But they are also at the same time deep encouragement, because I can feel that certain feelings are growing in the soul that are mature and loyal and connected. And I feel I'm growing. I'm growing in my own relationship with myself, and I'm growing in my relationship with God, and I'm growing in my journey of my aim. So it's like both sides are important, and I need to be able to see these feelings and never deny yourself those moments to become distant from your own feelings. Because if you become distant from your own feelings, you're going to become numb. And when you become numb, it's a dangerous space, because I go nowhere, but I'm not growing either. And so whether you've been with the spiritual journey in a short while or for a long time, you know, it's a very living journey. It's a very alive journey. It's a journey of belonging. But stay connected, and both ways. What's in my heart that needs to be cleaned out and what's in my heart that's growing me. Because a good heart has to start pumping well.
Interesting. So
No
everything
blockages.
everything starts with the heart, yeah.
For me, yeah. I suppose we all have different entry points.
No, I
but
think
I'm certainly a heart person. Yeah.
I feel with that. I feel that too. So lovely. Okay, so I think we've probably come to time now. I'm just glancing over at Manoj Bhai and the team, and maybe I can pass over. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful indeed. And I think one takeaway which you all were just pointing out very often, every now and then, is that sweetness is not actually something, an internal virtue. It's an outcome of many things which are happening inside. As you were saying, it's the flavor, it's the taste, it's the fragrance, so many things, beautiful things pointed out. And one thing struck me that what again in the discussion came up, I think in the first 15, 20 minutes was that meet everyone with a clean slate and meet everyone as if you're meeting them for the first time in your life. So that entire past baggage which you are carrying will go off and you'll be naturally sweet. Well, a few practical questions. The first thing is, I knew this would come up, that at my office, I am taken undue advantage because of my sweet nature. And I have to do a lot of extra work because of that. The sister is feeling that. Can you please help? Sweetness is not working here. She has to overwork.
Dipti Ben, would you like to start?
Go for it, Brother Ashish.
Okay. I think sometimes we can confuse politeness with sweetness. And we feel like, particularly in a work environment, when our self-respect isn't set fully, we can cross our own boundaries and say yes when we mean no. And only because we want to please our bosses, we want to be seen in a good way, we want to seek approval or gain praise, and we don't want to let people down, so there are unconscious motives underneath that maybe we're not aware of, because if there wasn't, then actually we would be really centered and sweetly be able to maintain our self-respect, knowing our capacity. And so this aspect of truth plays a big part in me knowing what I can do and what I can't, and to trust that somebody respects me enough and values me enough to respect my view if I say, this is my boundary. And the workplace is great at pushing boundaries. People will always find another hole to put work through. So to be able to say what you feel is really important based on your own capacity. That is an act of self-respect. And that is one of the hardest lessons to learn at work, but it can be one of the most empowering. Because when we don't have boundaries, you will always be asked. And nobody's going to care whether you've had a night's sleep, whether you've, eaten, because they just want their job done. So the truth is, people's intentions for us may not be as clean as our intentions for ourselves. So to be able to discern that for ourselves and recognize that, am I being polite or am I really being sweet here?
Yeah, I connect with that. I think, at a very deep level, it's always got to do with us. And I can only talk from a personal experience and a personal reflection on myself, is that I need to be aware of my capacity and my boundary and my self-respect. And, when I value certain things in myself, then people won't take advantage. It's sometimes if I don't value and recognize that in myself deep enough, then people will push the boundary. And you see what happens at times is we're not consistent. So at times we've allowed certain things. And then after a while we say, no, this is my boundary. Then people don't know how to behave with us. So there's certain things in myself I need to be so consistent with. And my consistency about my principles and my consistency about my values and my consistency about my responses to certain things have to be very real and there. Because then people know me and understand me, and I won't just then get a reaction afterwards that I've been used. I think it's a very important aspect of my inner boundaries, my inner values, my inner consistency that helps me a lot.
Right. The next question is quite interesting. It's a brother saying that I have recently he's taken the course very recently, the Raj Yoga meditation, and very often he now goes to read the Murli class, the morning class which we have, the spiritual class. And he says there's a lot of conflict inside me when I hear this statement in the teachings that you are my sweet children, when I'm really so bitter inside. And I really have a lot of guilt conscience inside me. I really am not able to digest this sentence daily, in and out, at the start, at the end of that class. So can you please help me? I'm still bitter. How am I really going to be sweet? And when?
You know, in this moment, let it be your medicine. Sometimes you need medicine. And if you take these sweet words as medicine, because it's difficult to digest initially, it will slowly start melting your heart and opening your heart to the truth. Because any form of bitterness that you may be experiencing is just a small percentage of the beautiful soul you are, of your beautiful journey through time, and your truth of who you are. So at times, certain levels of sorrow or bitterness in our life become so loud and so strong that it seems like a total reality. But it is not. It's maybe a small percentage of your whole journey as this beautiful soul through time. So initially, certain things may come as a reaction. And so when you hear the word sweet child and it's creating a reaction, it's okay. Just take the sweet medicine. I can guarantee you that over a period of time, your heart will melt to the truth, because this is who you are.
Sure.
I also think just a very quick thing to add is I also know from my own experience that anything that triggers me in the Murli is absolutely something I need to pay attention to. And this is actually the perfect opportunity to strengthen your relationship with God by having the faith that if you share your bitterness with him and see what he does to take it away, then actually your connection will be meaningful. You will have tested your faith, and you will have recognized that actually by sharing with honesty your bitterness, God can take it away. And I feel that if something is triggering you in the Murli in this way, that's a very powerful sign that actually maybe you can work with it in a positive way to strengthen and deepen your relationship.
Right. So what we could do, maybe we can take a few more questions, and if one of you can answer each, I think that will be, so we can take more questions. The first one is a very quick one. I think it comes from what you said, Sister Deepti, about that sweetness is born out of the eternity with the self, the relationship of the self being eternal. So someone is asking that I am not able to convince myself that I am an eternal being. I sit in meditation, I feel quite nice and light, but am I really eternal?
I think that when the soul is able to give time and space to the self, any limitations that are within the journey begins to soften. And the eternal energy of who I am is very prevalent in who I am. It's prevalent. This is who I am. But along the way, there's been so many experiences of life and our journeys that have narrowed that truth. And because it has narrowed that truth, I'm not having enough space to breathe this energy of eternity. And I find that each day, many years ago, and I was smiling when this question came up, because many years ago, I gave myself a 3-month bhakti. It's like every now and again, I give one word to stay in my life like my companion for 3 months. And one time, it was in the early 90s, I had given myself this very special energy. And my whole 3 months, I just was breathing this one word, I am eternal. I would say to myself, hey, Deepti, I am eternal. It was like something I was giving life to. For 3 months, it was only one sentence I knew, I am eternal. And by the end of 1.5 months, what began to open within the soul was incredible, was absolutely incredible. And I think the echo of that stayed for so long that even now when I sit for meditation, and in 2019, I had an interesting test in my journey with my body. But one of the things that carried me was just this one word, you are light, you are eternal. So I find that certain practices, one has to give room for it to awaken, because it's already there within the soul. And then one feels the beauty of it. So we don't have to convince ourselves that we are eternal. Give room and space for it to open in yourself, because the truth is already there, but give it space to awaken.
Wonderful. So the next question, it's on self-respect. So next for Brother Ashish, and a quick answer for both of them next and the one after that. It's about, you all spoke about self-respect and humility, right? So the question comes is, how do I maintain my self-respect constantly so that I can be sweet with everyone? Constant and everyone. Maybe Brother Ashish can meditate.
I think we've shared a lot on this particular aspect, because the constancy comes from really developing.
I think you've gone soft, Brother Ash.
Oh, yeah,
Just have to hold the mic. Yeah, okay.
yeah, sorry. I think, I was just saying we shared a reasonable amount in terms of how to develop sweetness, and then the consistency comes in keeping the effort on that. But in short, I have to develop, invest, and sustain a relationship with myself, of non-violence. And when that's possible over a long period of time, your self-respect begins to grow. So maintaining inner cleanliness is the first aspect of self-respect, because when I'm violent internally, then I will be violent in my vision, in my attitude, in my actions. So everything starts with what I put in my heart. And if I can keep my heart cleansed simply by releasing whatever I'm trying to hold, then actually I will be set in my self-respect, because there will be no space for violence. There will be no space for a hostile attitude, forceful nature, criticisms, because I'm holding a clean space internally. So actually, the deeper I go and the more consistent my practice about paying attention to what's polluting my inner world and releasing it, the greater my self-respect will be. And then I won't need the praise of others to validate me or to gain a sense of approval, because I respect myself enough to not treat myself like a dustbin. And in that way, that is a commanding place to be, and your very presence will vibrate that. When someone walks into a room who has self-respect, they don't have to say much. You instantly know their vibrations carry it. So the cleaner my vibrations, the more authority I carry, in a humble way, but I will be able to present a solid sense of self-respect that people won't be able to breach and cross borders on.
Right. I hope I'm audible. My internet connection seems unstable. Well, I'll ask this question because that there are no quick fixes in relationships, that we need to give time. So, questions directly related to that I am.
I think Brother Manoj is, I think the internet made him be out of the meeting. So hopefully he'll join. He's there. Anyway, so not sure. Time is running actually, and we would love to have a little meditation at the end. Maybe we can carry on with wrapping up here the question answer. And I will invite, we have among us Dr. Ashok Mehta to give the vote of thanks. So, Dr. Mehta, thank you.
I think this dialogue was very sweet. We really enjoyed every moment of it. I think clarity of thinking, and I think the preparation was very good. Dadi Janki's formula, I think, is always fantastic. She covers everything that should be covered in a practical life. Brother Ashish's letters to God every day for 5 years, amazing. I think it's a dialogue with the God, though it's a one way, but the answer comes in our own relationship with others when we improve over. I think a lot of things about self-respect, which makes us humble, and a deep self-respect is something I think all of us love to have. This kind of a dialogue is much more, revealing to have a self-analysis. Whether am I following the methods which were shown by our participants? I think this has been a very useful dialogue, and I think sweetness is that's the first thing that we hear every morning from Baba, Mere Mithe Bachche. And the sweetness has really sweetened our experience of the dialogue. Thank you very much. I think both Sister Deepti has a very resonant and beautiful voice. And even the sun, when he was playing the rays, it was looking very, very, it was like waves of sweetness going over you. And Brother Ashish also, I think I like his Angrez English. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta. So, Angrez, British or whatever, but the sweetness, that's what is coming out from Brother Ashish and Sister Deepti. And honestly, it was such a very rich, deep discussion today. It really touched a deeper part of my spirit, and the deep connection between the self-respect and humility. My true self-respect enables me to bow down. That's my true humility, genuine humility. That is my true relationship with myself, and then the sweetness for others' relationship that's coming out to be the best. And loved both of your methods. I'm sure everybody will also take that on and will listen to the talk again and again. And that is writing to Baba revealing yourself fully, both paths. That's what will show me who I am, and I come out of my impurities and also chart of my feelings. Thank you, Sister Deepti. That's what I have to remove, what is making me grow. Very, very rich discussion today. Before we go into meditation, I'll very quickly take 2 minutes to share the upcoming programs, announcements. So as we always do, after 1 week from today, we'll have the workshop on sweetness. So continuation, I'm sure we all will reflect what we heard today. So the first hour will be experiential exercises, and second hour will be yet another our practitioner, Raj Yogi, Brother Dave from Boston, USA, will take us through an insightful talk sharing on sweetness and meditation. So it's on 23rd of September, Saturday morning, 7 a.m. for West Coast, US, Canada. That's 7:30 p.m. in time. And we are reaching to our episode number 75. That's Platinum Jubilee episode. So that will have on harmony. That is, it's not Madhurta, sorry. Samrasta in Hindi. So we'll change that, harmony. That's happening after 2 weeks on 16th of September, same time as today, 7:30 a.m. West Coast time and 8 p.m. India time. We'll have two powerful, yogis. So Brother Eric Levereste from Canada, he's the national coordinator of Brahma Kumaris, Canada, and Brother Ken he's the regional coordinator of Latin America. So both of them will take us through this beautiful value, that's harmony. So it will be a conversation between them. So please join us. You will get all the information about upcoming programs on our websites. That's vihasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. And all the videos, including today's, will be on our YouTube channels. And you can find in many languages, English and all other recorded ones you'll find in the YouTube channel. So please check us out. Thank you, everyone. And I think we'll do the meditation. How do you want to do? Deepti, would you take us through, or Brother Ashish? We should have discussed before, but maybe we'll ask you.
Ben, would you do the honors?
So Deepti Ben, would you take us through a commentary? Meditation.
So I invite you to sit comfortably, upright, into a space of stillness and silence. Allow your thoughts to become present in this moment and experience the self to be pure energy. I am a soul, a being of pure, radiant energy. As I settle into this experience of being, I release all other energies. I am pure light. I am peaceful energy. As I step into this eternal being that I am, I come in touch with my true original qualities. In the stillness, in the silence, I touch the very core of my being. I am peace. I hold love Within my being, there is deep, deep compassion. The purity within the soul begins to shine. And I have once again stepped into the light of truth. I stay centered in this experience of who I truly am. Being in touch with this eternal self, very gently and comfortably. I am in the presence of that supreme source that is eternally divine, peaceful, loving, pure, blissful. This is a sweet connection, a sweet meeting between I, the eternal being, and the eternal one, the true, the living being, the blissful one. Silently and powerfully, I go deeper into this connection. Just I, the soul, in the presence of the divine. This is a light of love that knows me, understands me, and accepts me for who I am. In the sweet connection, loving connection with the source, I feel a deep, deep sense of belonging. You are the one who knows my heart. You are the one who opens my capacity. You are the one who fills me with power. I stay in this powerful connection and in this powerful meeting of the hearts. All other residue is cleansed. Your sweet, powerful presence comforts my heart and cleanses my being of any past, any residue, any bitterness. I stay with you, O divine being, allowing the rays of your purity, of your love, and of your power to clean me, to nourish me, to make me whole again. I stay with you eternally. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Deepti. That was really beautiful. So, source of witness, the divine. And sorry, the date for episode 75 is 30th of September, after 2 weeks. So one last thing, we always take a photo of the whole session. A lot of people have left. Sorry, we should have done it before. Whoever are here, you can please switch on your video and let's take and make this moment memorable. The photo with Sister Deepti and Brother Ashish. So everyone, you can switch on your video.
I like also to thank Sister Deepti, Brother Ashish. I hope to have both of you again. It was very nice. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sister Claudia. I was thinking, yeah, that would be nice to say bye. So thank you from all of us, and see you again.